So we've talked about values, now we're going to talk about justice. This image was just cool, I just liked it. Sorry, it doesn't have much to do with justice, but I do like it. Okay, so we're going to define justice by what it isn't. Justice is actually a really hard, abstract concept to understand, and many philosophers have spent many thousands of years talking about what justice is, literally thousands of years. So I don't expect us to come to an agreement about what justice is, but sometimes it's easy to define words by what they aren't. So when we see somebody, when we feel that something is unfair, we feel that that's not justice. So it's not just, so it's not fair. So when something happens and you think, wow, that's unfair, then what you're saying there is that, well, that's not just, okay? So fairness is tied up with justice. When we see people being cruel, that's not just. That's not fair, it's not, the cruelty aspect is not a good thing. And you will know it when you see it, because justice is actually tied up to our values, and I'm going to explain that as I go through. All right, so just when we're thinking about justice, it's easier to define it as something that it's not. So, somebody getting off when, they clearly did something wrong in a court, then we think that that's unjust. So there's no justice in the system. This is an image which you may have seen before, because I know us teachers use it a bit. This is a variation of the one that I normally use. Normally I use this side as equal, because this is equal because all three children have got a box each, and so it's equal. And then normally I describe this as equality, because the tall child can give their box up to the short child, who can then see over the fence as well. However, this meme has described it as justice. So there's justice, there's a sense of rightness about giving up your box so that the short person can actually see over the fence as well. All right, so there's this idea that it's about those who can support the others who are less fortunate or less advantageous than the others. So it's about some people giving up some things for others in order for there to be justice. Okay, so our tax system is based on a sense of justice. So we take income tax from people who are rich, and we readjust that in our economy and give it out to those people who are deemed by the government to need it. All right, and that's a sense of justice, a sense of rightness. The other thing that happens is that we have laws. So I talked earlier about how when somebody goes to court and they get off when it's kind of clear they did something wrong, that means that there's been an interpretation issue, and we talked about that in class the other day, about how different state levels of government have got different responsibilities of laws. We have different courts as well. And we're going to talk about that in the next lesson. But this is actually a screenshot of a website, which is legislation.gov.au, and it has all the laws of the federal government available for you to read. They're very hard to read. Some of them don't make much sense, but I personally hang out here a bit because I do love legislation. So legislation is just another way of saying law. So when a legislative instrument is the way that law is given. All right, it's the instructions, if you like. So that's a way of having justice as well. So we can say that, well, Australia is a just society because we have laws, and those laws dictate what is correct and what is not correct, what is right and what is wrong. All right, so justice is that sense of rightness. But then they're also tied to your values. So, for example, you may have had some moral dilemmas where you've been given these in other classes or something in relation to that. So if there was a train and it was heading towards, it was heading down a track and it's about to come to a fork in the track, so you can make the train go left or the train go right, and you make the train go left, it will kill one person, but that person's related to you, or you can make it go right and it can kill 4 people. Okay, we call this moral dilemmas, and they're moral dilemmas because what it's doing is asking you to put justice into play against your values. So is it just, is it fair, is it right to kill 4 people to protect somebody that you love? That's kind of the moral dilemma there. And people have argued that scenario for a very, very long time. It's a standard go-to philosophical argument. and we might be doing it in class. We'll see how we go for time. So justice is a complicated thing. It's basically about what's right and what's wrong. We do have legal parameters around that, and they're our laws, but then at the end of the day, it also comes down to your own personal values, because your values will dictate whether or not you think something is just. If you see someone being picked on the playground, do you step in or don't you? Well, that's up to your values, okay? There's no right or wrong because it's about your values. But either way, there's a different outcome.